All right, so back again with another Bands Beers FPL video. So getting close to the season, nerves kicking in. I don't think we're going to call this one final thoughts, but I think we're struggling to finish our teams to finalise and lock
Yeah,
them in.
nothing's final until you've hit that button right before the deadline. No way.
Yeah, I know I'm on about 23 drafts. I know Danny will be on a good site more. But yeah, just a quick one. Final thoughts. Go talk through my team. Go talk through Danny's team, and yeah, we'll just get through right and some of the major talking points. I think there's a few interesting developments over the past week that we can definitely talk about. So yeah, as usual, follow us on Twitter at Bands Beers FPL. That's at Bands Beers FPL.
The same on YouTube, Bands Beers FPL. Make sure you like and subscribe to the page.
Yeah, give us some comments, drop us below. We're not going to do a band this week just because we're going to talk through and get this a nice quick video. But what you've been listening to, anything exciting anyway?
Probably the kind of bands that I've shouted out already to, like Brutus was the three-piece that I've shouted out to in our first video, but I've been listening to Ghost a lot. They're one of my favourite bands, and their new album just keeps dragging me in nearly every week. I seem to be going to that. Impera, it's called.
Nice.
Ghost, they're just like 80s rock metal, but with this crazy face painted Pope lead singer. That's the only way I can describe him. I've been listening to him tons this week. What about you?
Check it out. Yeah, so I just came across a guy called Hobo Johnson in the Lovemakers. It's weird. It's kind of like the Streets, but if the Streets was like a millennial on acid, that's what it's like. It's kind of a bit more up tempo, kind of spoken word rap. Yeah, it's interesting. Quite enjoying it. What about beers? I know we've always got a beer every week. This week I've gone for Mikkeller, Belgian Surrealist Beer Masters. I've got Hazy IPA. It's cracking, really interesting beer. Huge fan of Mikkeller. I don't think I've ever seen him do anything wrong. I've been to their bars in Barcelona and stuff, and I can't recommend them enough. If you spot them on the shelf, see them in Asda. I think Marks and Spencer did a good range of them as well. Cracking beers.
Yeah, I do like Mikkeller. They are cheaper into supermarkets, a bit easier to get. They used to always just be really expensive to get in like good spirits or like some good beer shops. I have got something from a brewery that I'd never heard of. Otherworld, they're called, and I believe they're from Edinburgh, as far as I'm aware. What it says in the can anyway, I think. So it is a Montwaker and Lime Hazy Pale.
Oh, interesting.
Very nice, 5.3%. So I just took my first sip there. So we'll have a second sip. Waiting for the tasting notes, aye. But you can definitely get the lime on that. I like it. It was a can that kind of struck out. First of all, I was like, I was just looking for something a bit different. But yeah, so I'll definitely be checking more of them out. Otherworld Brewing.
No, I need to check them out. Sounds good to me. All right, so we're jumping straight into our what we would say is close to being final drafts. I know I'm probably going to change mine. I think there's a few places I'm not happy, a few players I'm missing. This season's been insane for how tough it's been. So we've got, yours up first.
Yeah.
So talk us through a little bit about interesting goalkeeping choices, defence, how you're playing that. Midfield, I'm already spotting one or two names I'm interested in, why you've chosen them, and I'll definitely be asking about them. And then just the strikers. So what's the thought process?
This draft is probably it's kind of common. I'm seeing quite a lot of similar ones, and not much has changed from some of the ones I've shared on the videos before. Ramsdale has been a no-brainer for me. Great set of fixtures for Arsenal. I wanted into that Arsenal defence. Danny Ward, we spoke about him last week. 4 million keeper that's going to be playing, we think, anyway. We know there's another one, Everson. Leicester have 2 4 million goalkeepers now. Some people are going for both because then they're covering both, but it just worries me. Like, what if they do sign another goalkeeper before the deadline? Then one of them is on the bench or whatever. I think it's a risk. Even though it's saving people money, you can have 2 goalkeepers for 8 million. The 3 big ones in the defence they talk for themselves. James, Alexander-Arnold, Cancello. They're just going to grab me points and clean sheets throughout the season. I think they'll probably stay in my team unless any injuries or something crazy happens. Trippier, I spoke about him before. Set pieces, just had to have him. Nico Williams, the enabler. He will play. I did have Patterson last week. We spoke about him, but I've seen a couple of little articles, little rumours about him maybe going out on loan. that would maybe explain why Lampard was playing him a lot in pre-seasons to get him in the shop window. But tempted to go back to him. I think Nico Williams is going to be good though, but he's in the team for now. Across the midfield, the obvious pick of Salah, we don't even need to speak about. He's got to be in everyone's team, really. I went for Martinelli over Saka. This was something I was thinking about all week, was is Walker, is Cancelo worth 2 million in Walker? And obviously I came to the decision of yes. And then is Saka worth 2 million more than Martinelli? I thought no, because even though he's on penalties, got Gabriel Jesus there covering a bit more Arsenal. Martinelli's pretty nailed on now. I don't think there's any competition with Smith Rowe being coming back from injury. Martinelli takes penalties as well if Saka's not in the field. So I just thought for 6 million, that's a great way to get into that Arsenal attack. It's a no-brainer for me. Bailey, we spoke about before. Bill's wee cousin again. Had to have him. 5 million. Great fixtures at the start of the season. Brilliant pre-season. I think he's going to be in a lot of teams. Andreas Pereira, we spoke about. No-brainer if you're needing an enabler. And then Kulusevski, it's probably my most interesting pick just now in midfield. So this came from, you'll probably spot down here, Haaland in my team, where it's been Kane for the last couple of weeks. I had been planning on the Kane game week 1 against Southampton and then switching to Haaland in game week 2. But yourself and some other sort of articles I've seen, maybe going against that idea. I just think Kulu is going to stay in the team he's got to. I do want an 8 million midfielder spot in there in case I want to switch to someone like Mount, Diaz, Foden, Mahrez or something. And I need a big attacker. So I've gone for Haaland just now, Kulusevski to cover Spurs, Gabriel Jesus is in everyone's team, and then David just wanted a little bit of the Brighton pie. But still, I don't know, I might switch back to Kane and then put in Mount has been my 8 million midfielder spot for quite a bit this week. So that's how it's sitting at the moment. Subject to change. I'm not 100% happy with it. I've been mucking about with 3 premiums, trying to get Son, Haaland and Salah in, or Kane, Haaland and Salah, and it works. I can get there, but I'm not 100% on it. I think this is what I'm looking at the moment.
So the reason I'm sitting in silence is I just want to take in. I've got a few questions that I was going to drop in, but I thought I'd keep it for the end. So I'm intrigued. I know that you've got the big 3 at the back. 7.5, 7, 14, 20 million, 20.5 spent on your defence. I know quite a few people will be, myself included, will be debating over whether that's what they want to do. I actually don't have Cancello. I might change that back. I'm not sure, but it's interesting. You're spending a huge chunk of change on that defence, and rightly so, as they are, like you say, the ever readies. They will get you points and they'll create those chances. The one I'm intrigued by is Martinelli. I keep hearing rumours that Maddison is going to Arsenal, which for me, Martinelli then becomes the player that drops out of that team. I can't see Odegaard, the captain, being dropped. I can't see Saka being dropped. He's on pens. So Martinelli makes way. Are you not worried a little bit about that happening, or are you comfortable with it?
I mean, I think there's been more rumours about going to Newcastle. I know Newcastle had a bid of 40 million rejected by Leicester. So, I mean, I don't know if he's set to be going anywhere yet. If he goes to Newcastle, then it's obviously not a worry for Martinelli. If he does go to Arsenal, it's not going to be overnight. Like, I think any Maddison transfer is going to drag on probably towards the end of the window, which is going to be into game week probably 4 or whatever by then. So, I mean, if Maddison comes to Arsenal and threatens Martinelli's space, I'd happily move Martinelli on for another 6 or free up some money to get in Maddison or Saka if I want to still have a bit of that Arsenal attack. So not worried about it at the moment, but if it does come to fruition, then it'll be a concern, but not for game week 1.
So we spoke about subs before, and the bench being, we particularly like the idea of having a semi-strong bench, which you clearly do here. Are you comfortable if anything was to happen in terms of, say a couple of injuries? Are you comfortable playing Pereira, bringing him in for the midfield? Are you comfortable having Undav up top? The likelihood of Haaland or Jesus being injured or not playing is probably slim to none, but do you think that you're quite comfortable with that you're not? I see a lot of sort of templates and drafts where people are just not, they've got a terrible bench, and I really worry about it. It freaks me out. I'm one of those people that likes to kind of see you comfortable. I can see, like, you know, Nico Williams kind of slotting in there quite well. Andreas Pereira, obviously, good shout for Fulham as well. Good big team. So, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, what we're looking at just now, I like that bench because I just really want to have a bench that's got 3 players that I reckon are going to play at the start of the season. Williams, Pereira, I think are 100%. When you play Undav, maybe not 100%, but still quite high. Like, I think he's going to be ahead of Welbeck anyway, and Mopé's not played a lot in pre-season, so he's there. And they spent a lot of money on him, so he's going to get into the team at some point. So I think that's what I do want to have is 3 players. Like, I think on one of these tweets that I've done earlier on today, if we're just going to this. Yeah, I think this was one of my freemium drafts where I managed to squeeze in Son, Haaland and Jesus, downgraded Cancelo to Walker, Doherty instead of James, but it's the bench. Like, I mean, that Patterson can be Nico Williams, obviously. Fair enough. It's 2 of the bench that I would have just now in my current draft, but yeah, it's the striker position. I don't really want to have Deadwood as a striker because what if Haaland does get injured or whatever, or suspended for 1 game or something, I don't know, and then you want to play your other striker. I just like to have a bit of reliability to at least get 2 points coming off the bench. So as attractive as that 11 looks, it's not so strong down here. However, flip side is you maybe won't need to use your 3rd bench spot, maybe 2 enough. So I understand why people are maybe going for a 4.5 striker. Me, I just think I always like to have 3 playing spots just in case something crazy happens. Like, what if COVID gets into Arsenal's camp and then that's your 3 Arsenal players out and they could be playing against Tottenham, so then you've got 4 players that are out. Like, COVID's not gone yet, so I think it's worthwhile having a strong bench.
So that's one of the points that we spoke about. The other one that I was kind of intrigued by, that I'll probably talk about on mine and yours, the set and forgets. So every year there's players that will be in your team that, you know, you're probably just going to leave and hope not to transfer out. But do you have who have you got in your team that you would class as a set and forget? I mean, obviously this is something to change because things can happen, but who would be the players that you would say that in your team and are probably going to stay for the longevity of it?
So last season, the only player that was in my team from game week 1 to 36 was Trent Alexander-Arnold. Mainly because I think he was fit for the whole season and he was just brilliant, and then his price rose so much, so if you want to take him out and get him back in, it was just a bad move. Salah came out of the team, I think he had a couple of injuries and stuff like that, didn't he, last season, so he was in and out a little bit. But looking forward this season, I mean, Salah and Trent, I think I'd happily, if they're going to be fit for the whole season and nothing crazy happens with Liverpool's form, then I want the 2 of them in my team for the whole season. Same with Cancelo, I think. He's definitely the best defensive asset they've got. He's a brilliant attacker, and he's another one whose price is going to rise so much that it's going to be hard to get rid of him and get him back in. So I think just these 3. James, if he played well, it'd be great to keep him, but I just see Chelsea going through little patches. Like, if they go 2, maybe 3 games not keeping a clean sheet, then heads are going to be turning away from a 6 million asset like James. Maybe try to get someone like Diaz or Van Dijk or someone, or Robertson if he can afford it. So James, maybe not so much, but definitely these 3. I'd say Salah, Trent and Cancelo. I wouldn't say the strikers because you just never know. Like, they just go, if a striker goes a few weeks without scoring, then you're looking elsewhere, and there's plenty of money there to be spent on other players.
Brilliant. So we'll go on to my draft. See,
yes.
Yeah,
let's have a switch. That one, close that one. This should be you in here. What's your team name again?
Dramchester United.
Manchester United. So
yeah, the dram aspect. Just every year they're a whiskey. I'm a big whiskey fan, so every year, and a beer fan obviously, but every year they're a whiskey related name. So I did whiskey and Cokie, but obviously Cokie's not a big player anymore. Last year it was Dramchester? No, Dramilton.
Academical. That's right.
So yeah, it's good. Yeah, so my draft is completely insane. It's very different from yours. I've again humming and hawing over this again. It's just one of those ones that it's not going to stay like this. The only players, if we go through quickly, that I'm 100% comfortable with and definitely want on my team are Salah, Robertson, Jesus, and Saka. I think they're the four that I am fairly set on. But if we go through them, Raya and goals, I really like Brentford's fixtures. I think they're quite a good defensive team. They play quite well. They tend to get clean sheets. They tend to be quite defensive. So hopefully going in, apart from the first game, which is, I think it's like Manchester United at home, which again, I'm not really overly bothered about. I can't see Man United coming out the blocks flying, especially if this whole Ronaldo saga carries on. So I think Raya, I'm interested in. It gives me the extra 0.5 to play with. Ward, obviously, substitute goalkeeper, easy choice. Probably the best. I was looking at it yesterday. I actually don't think there is another 4 million keeper that actually is going to play, which is quite worrying for a lot of people who are investing in 4 million keepers and goals. We'll talk about this later, but I went through this yesterday and I don't think there's any now other than Ward. So again, be careful with that. Cash, wanted to get into that Aston Villa team with double up was about a tough one. I wasn't sure if I was definitely going to go for it, but I like the look of them. I think they're playing well and they've got a fairly decent start to the season. I think it changes about game week 5, game week 6. So hopefully then I can start looking at flipping that money out. Rico Henry, we've spoke about, we both really like. Budget defender, will get returns, attacking returns as well as defensive, should be quite good. James and Robertson, 2 no-brainers. I went for Robertson over Trent because I think there's not that much between them. And again, it's that extra 0.5 to play with. Just gives you a wee bit more room to get to 8 million midfielders and also have Jesus and Kane up front. Nico Williams, again, no-brainer. Enabler, there we go. Saka, really want Arsenal midfield. Think he's the best of the Arsenal midfield options. We spoke about penalties. He scores goals. He sets goals up. Maybe the only minor point for him would be that he's yellow card disciplinary record's not the best, so does suffer from -2s. We've spoke about Bailey or Bailly, depending on how you want to flip that. Mount, I really want to be. I think Chelsea are probably second best for fixtures for the first couple, like maybe first 8 weeks. So I really wanted to have access to that Chelsea attack. I did have Diaz in that position, but I'd rather have spread the play a little bit and have access to that Chelsea midfield rather than just having Diaz and Salah. Salah, obviously, like we've both mentioned, is, no-brainer. We're both going to have him. Almiron, we spoke about this a little bit. I'm not 100% convinced. As a 5 million midfielder, I was looking, he's actually, one of the better options. But again, that's subject to change. The other one that I really like in midfield is Dewsbury Hall, but I'm worried about Leicester big time. Really worried about them. So decided against having them in. Jesus, yeah, we know. And then Brennan Johnson, I think Nottingham Forest are going to do. I think they're going to do. I'm hoping they'll do well. I mean, I don't know for definite, but they could be the surprise package. And like we've spoke about already, good subs bench player who takes penalties, and I don't know. I think he takes some of their free kicks.
He's on everything, yeah. According to the app, he's on some free kicks and corners. So brilliant. I want to get him in my team if I can squeeze him. I will, but I've not yet.
Yeah, and we spoke about the Kane Haaland switcheroo. I think I wasn't set on that. I felt like it was too much money to have up front, but especially after last season when the strikers just weren't doing much. So, but then I've kind of realised that when we spoke about future proofing, one of the major points I did today was go through every position, every value, and just have a set list of players that I could switch from and to. So, 8 million midfield, everybody speaks about, but just having the option of being able to switch if you really need it, without having to climb up another 0.5 or go down. And I think Kane to Haaland, it can be a no-brainer. So you can just rotate through them for the whole season, providing the two of them are playing well. So it's probably important to have that player up front, regardless of whether you don't want to. I mean, I'm not keen on having that much money invested in the forwards, but I think for me at this point, it's just the safest bet. So, yeah, I'm worried about the defence. I'm probably going to change it. It does look a little bit weak. Just for the moment, not having Cancello and stuff like that's probably giving me a little bit of anxiety, but I can justify why I've picked him and I like the defence. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Right, let's chat. I've got a few questions.
Fire away. I was
Not in a bad
expecting
way.
it.
I just want to know. I want to pick. Have you got any money in the bank?
No.
That's down to zero. Okay, that's good. I like the spreading of the funds, really. First off was Henry and Raya, so that's like doubling up on Brentford defence. Are you that keen on Brentford defence, like for the 9 million?
No, I'm not.
I'm not sure.
That's the one of the ones I'm probably going to flip about. The reason I picked Henry is because I really like the idea of the attacking returns. So there's a strong possibility that I'll switch either Raya to Sanchez, or maybe go back up to Ramsdale. That's my, the treble goalkeepers that I'm sort of looking at. Sanchez I'm worried about because I don't think Brighton's fixture list is particularly great at the start of the season. That's why I've gone for Brentford, because I think they're in the FDR. They are one of the ones that have a good fixture run. So yeah, the doubling up of the Brentford thing is probably a little bit ambitious and optimistic.
But
the defence is definitely getting played with.
If it's those two goalkeepers, who would you be starting in game week 1, assuming Ward is starting for Leicester, because they're playing against each other? It's Brentford Leicester in game week 1, so Leicester at home. So is that kind of thing, like, who do you think is going to have more of a chance of scoring, Brentford against Leicester or Leicester against Brentford? That's tough.
I would definitely be playing Raya 110%. I have no confidence in Leicester. I mean, I keep saying this, and I know people are going to come out and slag me for it, but if they're losing players like Fofana, if they're losing players like Madison, they've got Vardy, who's always a threat, but I worry about them. Like, it's a severe regression unless they sign some players. They're at risk of losing players like Tielemans as well. I can't see how they can possibly challenge and stay kind of afloat this season if they don't bring in the players that are going to make a difference. And if they're letting players go, I would be picking Brentford over Leicester all day long.
Yeah, you're right, man. The only concern I've got looking at this team on paper is there's just no City coverage at all. Like it's the champions. They've got the best team, really, like, on paper. I know there's Pep Roulette, and that really puts off a lot of people, but no one at all.
I know it's hard. I think Mount was a last minute addition. I actually had either Mahrez or Foden in that position, and I think I can probably flip back to that. And again, in defence, I was looking at instead of Cash, maybe have Diaz to get me into that Man City defence. Again, I could probably play about with funds. Move Almiron down to a 4.5 and move Henry up to Diaz. That gives me that option as well. So there's scope to play with in this. I've been looking at the ways to slot in and out, and the good thing about not tying up your funds in sort of the most expensive defenders is that if anything happens, it's really hard to flip back and forth between them. So I'm trying to work out ways that I can best be economical with my budget, but also have the best players. And see, the other thing is as well, like everybody will say, oh yeah, you have to have these players in defence, right? But see, last season, there was loads of times where people didn't have Trent. There was times where people didn't have James. There was times where people definitely didn't have Cancelo. So, if you've got the right players in the right place in their place, then you're still going to get the points. So it's important to kind of weigh that up and pick out whether you go budget versus what matters, because I don't want to squeeze all my money into a set group of players and then be struggling to put together a bench, which could be to my detriment, but that's my plan anyway.
Yeah, it's tough, man. There's far too many options now this season. That's my only kind of downside to that team is, like, I would try and get something in from City, like, especially the defence, maybe even just Kyle Walker, 5 million, because he's going to be nailed on for the start of the season. Because I worry about the attack. Like, Haaland's obviously got to play whenever he's fit, like if they're managing his minutes, whatever, but he's not got anyone a straight threat in that position. Whereas, like, Mahrez, Foden, Grealish, he can only play 2 of them alongside him, really. So, and then De Bruyne's obviously nailed on, but it's so hard to fit him in if you want to fit in a good Spurs asset and all these defenders and Jesus and stuff. It's just City are tough. So I guess that's why I've only really had Cancelo in my team for a while. I've just recently chucked Haaland in, but that's subject to change. But Almiron's an interesting one. I did see him because he's obviously done quite well in pre-season. I've looked at I've been looking at loads of pages of predicted lineups for the start of the season. And especially like if you can sometimes find FPL fan Twitters for each team, so it's a fan of the team and they'll give their thoughts. A lot of people are looking at Fraser to be playing in that right wing slot for Newcastle instead of Almiron, so maybe just keep your eye on the presser. But he's got to be in somehow. If he doesn't start, he might come on, or you've got a strong bench as well. If Almiron didn't play, then Johnson could be your guy that comes on or whatever. So that's the only concern, because I quite fancied Almiron when I was tinkering with someone instead of Andreas Pereira. I like the 5 midfielders not having Pereira in it. He keeps creeping back into my drafts just to save that 0.5, but everybody's going to have him. It's one of those ones that, see, when you look to your bench and then you've got some points coming off, like everyone's got those points coming off at the same time. I don't mind having a wee differential on your bench as well. So like if everyone's got Pereira coming on for a 2-pointer, you might have Almiron for a 10-pointer or something like that. So I like the idea of a different enabler as that 5th midfielder, like an Almiron or a Dewsbury Hall or something like that. So
it's a good shout. It's a good shout you mentioned. I mean, I'm humming on because there are like deficiencies in this, like you mentioned, the City, which I can switch out the players to be played out. But I like the tip to check, Twitter pages for team supporters of teams, because it's a good place to go for knowing what their formations are going to be, knowing who they're going to play, that kind of stuff. Obviously the supporters are the best people to speak to. So yeah, really good tip with that. So I mean, there'll be a lot of playing about, don't get me wrong, this is definitely going to change. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if 4, 5, 6, 7 players switch out by the end, because all I've been doing is tinkering, like me and you both being the same. So just quickly before we move on, I want to address the FDR, and I think the 5 teams, I picked out 5 teams that I really think people should be looking at just for fixtures. Yes, the fixtures. Go back up to the FDR. Yeah. So for me, the 5 teams that I think people should definitely be looking at, out with City and Liverpool. That's obviously Liverpool in it, but out with City as well. Arsenal, Chelsea, Leeds, and Brentford are the teams that I think seem to have a fairly decent run. Without having to break, so they're running through quite well. Blocks of green team playing against teams that are running about their level could do quite well and things like that. So yeah, keep an eye on those 5. They could serve you well. I think definitely using the fixture, the FDR is a really good way, the grid and stuff, to navigate fixtures, work out who you can switch out, when you're going to switch them out, and take a wee look. So yeah, anyway, back onto the talking points. I wanted to ask you specifically, this is the main one straight from the off, Ward and the Leicester double up and the goalkeepers. What's your thoughts on that? I've noticed quite a lot of big Twitter, FPL Twitter teams picking, the Leicester double up for their goalkeepers, and it just freaks me out. I don't understand how you would be comfortable with that. Not because of Leicester's transfer policies at the minute, but just the idea of having 2 or 4 million rotating goalkeepers is quite scary for me, because I just don't know how well both are going to play. Again, if you're brave about it, then it's definitely worth it, because it is saving you that quite a bit of money.
I understand it. I think I'm just maybe a little bit scared of it as well. I'd like to have a top 6 goalkeeper, maybe, if I can, or if not, it would be Raya or Sanchez. I think it's a brilliant saving. Obviously, you can get 2 goalkeepers for 8 million instead of most people are going at 9 or 9 or 8.5, 9.5 or something. But I just think there's still like a while to go until the transfer deadline ends. I know Brendan Rodgers has come out and said he thinks Ward is a number 1 goalkeeper, but they could easily sign someone, and then that scuppers that plan. But that's like game week 4 or something. You could change things up. You don't really want to be wasting transfers and goalkeepers. I just don't think so. It just kind of worries me. There's obviously a lot of people doing it now, because you can see that Everson only got added to the game yesterday and he's already owned by nearly 2%. So quite a lot of the big FPL experts and the big players are going for Ward and Everson. I understand it's to squeeze as much out of your budget, but for me, I don't see them keeping that many clean sheets like you've talked about. Like Fofana could be going. They were kind of rubbish last season without him. Vestergaard is a 4 million defender. Like, he used to be quite good, and that kind of shows you his prowess is gone. I don't see Leicester having a great season either, unless they sign some other players. So for me, I just wouldn't want to put all your eggs in one basket. I like having Ward as the backup. If he is playing and they've got someone that doesn't score many goals at home that week, and your goalkeeper, say Ramsdale, is away to, I don't know, Chelsea, Liverpool, cool, chuck in Ward, but I just wouldn't want it to be restricted to them because I don't see them getting a lot of clean sheets.
The main thing for me is for all the chat of the idea that you have Ward. So the thing that scares me is that's two £4 million goalkeepers, right? And see, don't get me wrong, if both of those goalkeepers stay for the rest of the season and Ward is the number one, or selectively Everson's the number one, it's probably really good, and it means that you are squeezing a budget. It's not going to get you loads of points. I don't think Leicester's defence is particularly solid, but it's interesting. What scares me the most about it is there is no other 4 million goalkeepers that are going to be playing regularly. Like Gazaniga has just been switched out because they've just bought Leno. So is he going to play permanently? I really don't see it. And there's no one else that's at 4 million that's going to make that change. So yeah, I'm not convinced by it at all. It definitely wouldn't be for me.
Yeah, I'm just mucking about with it. I will muck about with that tonight, like the idea of it, and see if anything lands that's like perfect. But at the moment, it's for me, it would get me an extra million by going Ramsdale to Everson. And just looking at this team, obviously it is subject to change. I'm like, do I need that million? Like, where would I want to put it? Like, it's not enough to upgrade Martinelli to Saka. It's not enough for me to maybe take James to Robertson. Quite set with a lot of these players. Maybe I could upgrade Andreas Pereira to a 5.5 or go down from Undav to a 4.5, and then I could get a 6.5 in here, like a Rashford or Trossard or something. Maybe it's just not lighting up for me. Like, thinking, oh, I'm saving a million here. Like, I want Ramsdale because if I take him out, I'm going to want a piece of that Arsenal defence, and then I'm going to have to start looking. I mean, I could go Everson in here, and then Nico Williams could become Zinchenko. But I'm pretty set on Ramsdale. That's the thing. Like, there's a lot of things that are in my head that I'm kind of set on, and this late to be mucking about with the goalkeepers. I just think it's going to open up some doors that I don't really need to be opened up at this stage.
I think there's some goalkeepers worrying. I think it's one of those ones I probably wouldn't want to touch. That you're essentially going to have to play that, bringing in a 4 million goalkeeper and they go from the same team to ensure that if your goalkeeper gets injured, that the other 4 million will definitely play, which is, it's risky. Again, it's something that I'm not keen on. But again, if you're brave enough and you think it'll work, then definitely go for it. What about triple ups? We spoke briefly about the old Liverpool triple up. Is it essential triple ups this season, do you think, or are you quite content to just have twos all round essentially? I think Liverpool, I don't think it's essential. It's always good to have a triple Liverpool because you're going to get points. Triple City is the 3 players that are going to play all season for City, unless it's like you say, you've got Cancelo, Haaland, and Ederson maybe. But again, it's kind of how do you navigate that? So, what's your thoughts? Have you got any plans to triple up, or are you quite comfortable not?
I think I'm quite comfortable with double on Liverpool and City as it stands on there. I've obviously got triple Arsenal, but I don't really count that as a triple up when you get the goalkeeper. I wouldn't mind having Robbo, but I mean, there's a lot of people sort of tweeting like, "Oh, I don't know what to do with my third Liverpool slot," as if it's like essential and compulsory. I'm like, you don't have to. Like, I'm quite content with what I've got. I kind of feel like if Chelsea don't start well, lose a couple of goals and don't have clean sheets, then maybe I'll look to move James to Robertson. I've been tinkering with that Robertson instead of James in that triple up. I would think if I was going to do a Liverpool triple up, that's what I'd want. You've got to have Salah. I think you've got to have Trent, and then if you're going to add on to anyone, it's got to be Robbo over Diaz. I think for $1 million cheaper, Diaz will be going forward just as much. Like, Robbo will be going forward just as much as Diaz, I think, and then he's got the clean sheets and stuff. So, but for me, it's to answer your question, I don't think it's essential. City triple up, you just can't do it. You can't risk it. Liverpool, I think you can go for the 2 big hitters and then spread your funds elsewhere. Cool. Arsenal triple up is easy to do. They've got such great assets at the moment with good fixtures and good prices.
How important is formation for you? I've had some success in the past by playing 5 at the back, particularly game weeks where I think my 5 defenders are going to get clean sheets, and I've had quite a good points return. Doing that through the entire season is probably not a good idea. What's your thoughts? Is it going to be the classical 4-4-2 for you, or will you play a 3-5-2, or what's the best way to navigate, do you think?
This season's different. I always like to. I really like having 5 midfielders playing, or playable ones, just because the extra point for the goal, the clean sheet point, they grab a lot of bonus points when their team win as well. So I think, but last season there was hardly any good striker options. Whereas this season we've got Haaland, we've got Jesus, we've got Kane. Like, you've got players to choose from there. It was easy to do a 4-5-1 last season, whereas this year you're probably going to be playing 2 strikers most weeks. So it's either a 4-4-2 or a 3-5-2. And Andreas is going to be like the bench fodder. So for me, I think this is how my team's going to be structured. I'm wanting to have at least 3 big hitters, and then someone else, like when Trippier's not got a good fixture, I'll be bringing in Williams or whoever. And then I want to have 4 good midfielders at least. I would like to try and stretch to 5 that I like. So I think 4-4-2 or 3-5-2 is going to be the popular pick this season. I don't like 5-3-2. I just don't like the midfield being that light with just 3 players. I like to have 4 at least.
Right. Yeah, for me, I think having a flexibility. So if you have a good enough team that you can play 5 at the back, on the odd occasion where it might pop up that you might actually have an opportunity to get some really good clean sheets, can work. But yeah, flexibility. I think for me it will be 4-4-2 or it will be 3-5-2. I can't see me playing it any other way at the minute. Sometimes I have in the past played, I think it was a 4-5-1 last season, when the strikers were just misfiring and not really performing or producing. So yeah, I can sort of see that maybe, but 4-4-2 gives you the greatest flexibility, because it does mean that if, for instance, one defender doesn't play, one midfielder doesn't play, or one striker doesn't play, then all 3 are covered. Whereas, if you try and play it a different way, sometimes that can screw you if maybe 2 players don't play and then you're struggling. But that's been fun. I think a good way to finish it up, actually. I think we'll probably try doing our video maybe at some point quite soon, but that's our final thoughts, and really enjoyed chatting through with you. Me and Danny are away to work on our drafts again for the next, probably, how many hours is it left now?
24 hours to go. Yeah.
try and perfect it. But yeah, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll hopefully catch up with you guys soon.
Yep. See you soon.